You go to the bar and they've got this t-shirt about their place and it's $20 freaking. I'm like, okay, well, let's think about these t-shirts as marketing and we'll think about it as free marketing. So I'm going to charge you $7 a shirt. We had one bar in Milwaukee called the Monkey Bar, and they had this really cool logo, and we would just change the colors for everything that was happening. Brewers are on, okay, they're blue and gold. All right, the Packers are on, they're green and gold. Badgers are killing it, let's do white and red. And they just sold them for $5 or $6 or $7 or gave them away. So that was their marketing budget. And all around town, there was thousands of people just wearing these Monkey Bar shirts everywhere.
Welcome to Side Hustle Hero, the show that is laser focused to inspire you to take action to start or to scale your side hustle income streams. I'm your host, Joan Posivy, author of The Way Success Works. This episode is a bit of a departure from what you've heard me do in the past. Generally, the focus has been on a single side hustle idea. But when you're talking to a serial entrepreneur, well, it calls for a change in format. We covered a lot of ground with today's guest, Rob Kessler. For example, have you ever thought of an idea that would revolutionize a product? Have you ever wondered about the time and cost of getting a patent? How about running a boat charter service or a screen printing business? Check, check, check. We talked about all that. You'll also hear tips and hacks as Rob journeys with us through his multiple businesses, both past and present, like nude clothing, BellaBoating, $1 Million Collar, and goTieless. Be sure to catch the end of episode takeaway, where I focus on using the 6 degrees of separation concept to help you solve your next big problem. Now here is my conversation with serial entrepreneur, Rob Kessler. Well, welcome, Rob.
Thank you.
Well, all of us at one time or another have used a product and saw something wrong with it and thought, there's got to be a better way. Then there's a smaller group of people who actually take it a step further and they envision a solution, a newer, improved product. Then there's that even tinier group that not only see the problem and envision a solution, but actually take action on turning their vision into a reality and then sharing it with the world. It seems to me that's been the story of you and $1 Million Collar. So congratulations on turning a dream into reality.
Thank you. It's not all glory and fun, but
I was going to say there's probably times that it felt like more of a nightmare than a dream. But tell us about that incident that launched that trajectory for you.
So I got married to the beautiful, amazing woman on earth in Jamaica. And I've always been super casual. We got married on the beach, so toes were in the sand, no tie. And my brand new, freshly pressed Express 1MX dress shirt just was a collapsed mess. I mean, the humidity probably had something to do with it. Then you throw a jacket on and you're moving and nervous and sweating. Sure. And my shirt just was terrible. So we actually brought the photographer down. So the next day we were looking at photos and I was like, man, my shirt. And I just remember adjusting and tugging all day long. So I came home from Jamaica. I started searching all over the internet to see if there was anything that reinforced the placket of the dress shirt, which is the part with the buttons and the holes. Okay. And there's nothing. Everything on the market was some kind of kitschy Band-Aid fix to try to do something here. So I basically took the idea of a collar stay. I made it 9 inches long. I cut open a dress shirt. I shoved that piece of cardboard down the front and I showed my new bride. And she's like, oh my God, I get what you've been complaining about all these years. Like I always wanted that kind of symmetry in that. It doesn't have to be exactly perfect, but right. I remember I'd be ironing a shirt and getting ready and she's already ready to go out. She's like, dude, just put the shirt on. Let's go. Yeah. So I came up with $1 Million Collar concept. It took 2.5 years to perfect the design, patent the design, and then roll the thing out. So we got married in early of 2013, and then we actually launched in January of 2016 when we started selling the product online.
As I mentioned earlier, so many people think there's got to be a better way or a solution. What made the difference for you that you actually thought, there's a business idea here, I can do something with this?
So my dad and I are very similar, which means we butt heads quite a bit. Okay. And he called me out of the blue and said, hey, I really think that you got something here. I'd like to help you with a little bit of seed money and see if you can get this thing going. I had actually come up with other patented ideas over the years, which, I played around with like prototypes and stuff, but I didn't really ever take it to that next step. And
okay.
I owned a screen printing business and it was fun, but it wasn't like this life altering thing. And so I just was kind of tinkering around with it and played with it and used my time. And it just, the more I got into it and the more I talked to a friend and be like, yeah, man, here's a couple shirts to test out, which I ruined like 100 shirts trying to figure out the material. And then I just got so much support from the people around me that it made it an easy decision to follow through.
Well, a lot of people are going to be listening on audio. So describe your product for us.
Think collar stay, except narrower and 9 inches long.
Okay.
And it goes into the placket where the buttons and the holes are. So the beauty and the challenge of my product is every dress shirt's made exactly the same. There's always 2 layers in the placket and 2 layers of fabric in the collar band. So a tailor or anybody who can sew a straight line opens a couple stitches, slides it in, sews it back together. So the challenge is this installation step. Okay. But the beauty is because both sides of the placket are visible when you wear a dress shirt without a tie. It's hidden discreetly. Once it's in, I've run out of the house 100 times without putting collar stays in, and I've got collars all curling, and you don't ever have to think about this. It'll last the life of the shirt. I'll take a shirt off and throw it in the corner and wash it 3 weeks later. So I wanted to make sure it was to the lowest common denominator that I was, that no matter how you treat your shirts, this thing's going to last for the life of it. So that was what really, really took a long time. Dry cleaners flash press your shirt at over 400 degrees. Wow. And so any normal plastic on the market will melt instantly. And that's why I ruined about 100 shirts trying to figure out the correct material, because I'd wash it fine, dry it fine, iron fine, because that's 200 degrees. And then I send it to the dry cleaner and this thing would just be melted and I'd ruin another shirt. So that's what took a while.
Then how did you go about finding material would be the word, that would withstand the heat and yet still stand up properly?
That was a big challenge. It was a constant, let's try this material and see how it performs. And then so I would just Google search and find high heat plastics then, test that. And I wanted it to be thin. So I didn't want it to be like bulky and overbearing. And it was just, I literally tested everything that was on the market. And then a conversation led to an introduction, which led me to a international plastics company. I sat down with them and said, here's what I'm looking for. We tweaked one of the products that they carry, and that ended up working out for what I needed it to do. So the thing that drives me the craziest is when I send this out to somebody and they're like, I don't want it. I don't like it. And then the review says, it's way overpriced for a piece of plastic. And I'm like, oh my God, so not a piece of plastic.
Yeah.
It's soft enough to be sewn through. It's rigid enough to hold the weight of the collar, which is what the real problem is. It's super flexible. It's clear-ish enough so that it's not going to be seen through a white shirt. I mean, it's like this magic material that has all these crazy properties. And then it's also 700-degree heat resistant.
It's not that expensive, right?
No, they're like, we sell them for $2 to $3 per set. And then depending on where you go to get them installed, like mom does them for free.
Right.
She taught me how to sew. My sewing machine's right there. I do a lot of installs or have over the years.
Yeah.
But your dry cleaner or tailor is going to charge between $8 and $12 per shirt. And again, it's a one-time fee. So once it's in, and it doesn't matter if you buy a $12 H&M shirt and you put this in, it's going to look amazing. Or you buy a $200, shirt, that's going to look amazing too. Because to me, the softer fabrics, the higher end fabrics are softer and have even less structure to them. So it's the people that complain that, my expensive shirts don't do that. I'm like, yes, they do. I have Robert Graham. I've done every single brand on the planet. They all do this. It's just whether or not it's a big problem for you or not.
Yeah, because they look terrific. Before and after picture is just like so obvious. And I love the story, the way you described it, because it's a classic example to me of, I'm going to do this. I don't know how. You don't have a degree in plastics. You didn't know that, but it was one foot in front of the other. Jump onto Google or whatever search engine, figure out the next step. I love that until you got that physical product in your hands. Well, I understand you also have a patent for the collar. What's involved in that in terms of cost and time?
What's involved is writing a lot of very big checks. We are into the 6 figures now. It took 3 years. I mean, that's the patent process, and we paid to expedite it. So the process really is, I went and found the most expensive attorney in town because I'm like, if I'm going to base my life on this, I want to make sure that I'm protected. And so they're going to write it as big as possible to cover as much of your idea as possible. And then the patent attorney or the patent office is going to say, that's a little too much. Let's bring it in a little. And then it's just how big can we write it and get away with it and then get it passed. And so
got it.
I think we went back and forth 3 times before mine got approved. But then it's within 6 months of that approval, where else in the world? I haven't even had a chance to start selling the thing. And they're like, okay, where else do you want to protect? And then each one of those additional countries is an additional fee. And then every year that you're in business, that fee increases because they assume that you're doing business and growing and getting bigger. So we're pretty well internationally protected, but it's tens of thousands of dollars a year to maintain it. And I mean, it's a lot. It's overwhelming.
Who does the money go for that tens of thousands of dollars per year to keep it up? I've understood once you had the patent, that was it. But you're saying no, there's an annual cost to it?
Yeah, there's an annual maintenance fee. And so that you pay that to the patent office, and then they're going to continue. That keeps the patent alive.
Yes.
Really sad story. The lady that invented the fidget spinners, she came up with this great idea. Her son, I think, had ADD or autism or something. And she came up with this fidget spinner thing. She couldn't afford the maintenance fees, which, in the US only is a couple $1,000 a year. Patent lapsed, and someone else, that became $1 billion industry. And so that's where it's a struggle. It's like, man, I got other bills to pay, but if I let this thing lapse after this point, I've lost everything that I've done, and there's no getting it back. So,
right. Yeah, that's an expense that needs to be on the top to get paid for sure. Well, what's been your most effective method of marketing, connecting with your ideal customer?
So when we first launched, we knew the product was very demonstrable. You have to see the before and after. Or when I would be out, hey, do you hate it when your shirt collapses? Yeah, I hate that. And then I could show my card or my shirt. So we went right to YouTube fashion influencers, because those guys, number one, have an audience that follows them and cares what they have to say.
Yeah.
And two, they're able to say, look, here's what my shirt looked like before. I just went to the tailor. I tailor all my other stuff anyways. Here's what it looks like after. This is a game changer. And then it took off pretty quick out of the gate because of that. What we did learn over the years is, as these guys grew, the audience became more of a, I follow him because he's big, and not a, I follow him because I really care about what they have to say. So if you're going to go down that route, I say 200,000, 250,000 followers or less is your better bet. When we went back to the same guy, when he had 200,000, when he had 4.5 million followers, and those videos were far less effective than when he had 200,000, because the 200,000 only knew about him because they were looking for that advice and that guy, and that he liked his style. So yeah, we learned that one the hard way, because they get about 4 or 5 times more expensive when they have 4 million, and they're putting out one a day or two. So they're throwing so much content out. I think it just gets lost in the mix.
Gets lost in there. That's a really good tip. Well, how many units are you up to now that you've sold?
We are just about to cross 500,000 units. We've got sales in 130 countries, which is pretty incredible.
That's fantastic.
Beauty of the tailoring side of it for the rest of the world is almost everybody tailors their clothes when you get outside the US. The US is like, look, I'm going to go to the store. If it fits, I'll buy it. If it doesn't, I'm not. And they don't really tailor their clothes as much here as they do internationally. So I don't have to spend as much time convincing people internationally to buy this, because they're already going to the tailor on a pretty regular basis.
And is there any people outside of the US that have distribution rights, or you look after everything globally?
Yeah, we tried doing that, and it would just be, a customer like, oh, this is a really great idea. I think I can sell this, and we'd give them a shot. And so pretty much for the most part, we just handle it all. It's pretty straightforward.
I love seeing entrepreneurs getting great publicity, free airtime. Tell us about what the $1 billion idea show on Fox Business was, and how you landed a spot on that show.
I've been trying to get on Shark Tank since the beginning. Before we even had a product, we had some prototype shirts that we had. And so we were going to go to the market with a shirt, and we went to one of the casting calls in Milwaukee. So we did that for Shark Tank, didn't get in. We moved to California, my wife and I, and quickly met Mark Burnett's #1 personal assistant, which is the craziest introduction you're ever going to get. And he's like, hey, I'll hook you up with the guy that does this part of the casting. We went right through to the video part and had it professionally edited. We did a script and the whole thing, and we still didn't get through. And then a few years later, I got into this men's group, and we went on this little trip, and these guys were like, oh yeah, I'm actually buddies with Mark's #2 guy who actually runs a show. I'll give him a call and see what we can do. I still couldn't get out.
Wow.
So some of the people from that show started and worked on $1 Billion Idea, and they reached out to me as becoming a potential guest. And so I went through the whole process, video, shot all that, and they selected us.
Nice. And how was that process for you?
It's good. It's frustrating. I mean, they were here for 6 or 7 hours filming, and a lot got cut out that I thought would be helpful. I live in the middle of nowhere, so my internet typically sucks. And so I think that when they were doing that last part where they called in, I think my thing froze. And so they cut, like, I talked for like 3 or 4 minutes, like the other two contestants on my episode did. And they were like, I got 20 seconds in and that was all I got to say. And I was like, what happened? What happened?
Oh, man.
Hey, it is what it is. We took the advice from him. I know that we're never going to be a $1 billion company by selling these to people and having them go sew them in their shirt. We knew that it's going to be a licensing deal or it's going to be in a shirt one way or another. So we really leaned into our sister brand called goTieless, which is the first shirt designed to be tieless, featuring $1 million collar. We took the number one selling shirt in America. We improved the fabric into this bamboo soft, stretch, wrinkle resistant fabric. So it's incredible fabric.
Nice.
It's got $1 million collar, obviously. It's also got a convertible cuff. So there's a little buttonhole in between the two buttons. So if you want to throw on cufflinks any day you can, it's not a big deal.
I'm going to put a link to that in the show notes because those collars look really great. What you've done with that, the inside, describe that to me because that's really cool because you can customize that too, right?
So yeah, one of the things that we can do with goTieless is on the contrast of the inside of the cuff, inside the collar band, and inside the placket, we can digitally print any logo on the fabric. So we can do smaller runs for weddings. Like my partner's been at a bunch of weddings and we can custom die match the contrast to like the bridesmaid dresses, which is kind of a fun thing.
Nice.
And then on the company side, I mean, the downside of the digital is it's a 50-piece minimum for the logos.
Okay.
So, if you've got to have a decent sized company to order 50, but we've done like Citgo and Make-A-Wish Foundation and some good sized companies, but it's super cool. So you don't have this like old school left chest trade show dress shirt. It's very subtle, but it's very classy. Those shirts are amazing. And they're only like $60. So you got to order 50 of them, but they're $60 a piece. And my whole thought was, man, if you can get this onto an employee and he's like, my favorite shirt is this freaking Citgo shirt.
Exactly.
I need to go get this thing and more of my shirts. I'm always looking for creative ways to get my product onto somebody because once you wear a shirt, it's a game changer. You're going to look at all your other stuff and be like, I cannot wear those shirts like that. So whatever it takes.
Awesome. Originally, the focus was selling the placket itself for the $2 to $3 a piece you were saying. But there's been a shift, or maybe it was an addition to goTieless so that you're selling the whole thing. What prompted that?
I always want to get as easy as possible for someone to try my product. And so when we got our patent, my partner's insanely good at penetrating the corporate ladder and finding the right person to talk to. So we met with all the biggest brands in New York within a month of this patent being issued. And so we went to them and we said, we've got this great idea. We've got this great product. We've got this great following. And they're like, I don't know if it's really a thing. Prove it. And so that's why we went direct to consumer and sold the 500,000 units saying, look, we've got 50,000 customers from around the world that have bought this thing and then had to go somewhere to get it installed, finding $12 to $15 value in adding to their shirt.
Yes. We
know that this works. And I've heard no so many times. I'm just like, fine, I'll stop hearing no. I'll go start my own brand and I'm going to show you that we can build a brand around this technology. And I'm going to force you to pay attention. So we do that. I also have an account with PVH. So I buy Calvin Klein and Ralph Lauren and Tommy Hilfiger shirts. We upgrade them with $1 million collar and then sell that shirt that you already know. You already know the fit. You already know the fabric. You already know the brand. And so if you like that, you can have a shirt that already has $1 million collar installed. We also have a VIP mail-in service. So you can send me 5 to 15 shirts. You just throw them in a bag that we ship to you with a label on it. They come to us. We install it, fold them up, send them right back out. And so nice. I thought that was a viable thing, the VIP, because there's 40,000 literally dry cleaners in North America and most of them do alterations. So why not drive 5 minutes down the road instead of shipping it across the country? But hey, if that's what it takes, then that's what it takes. I'll do it. Another
offering. Nice. Well, you also had a business called BellaBoating. How did that come about? And timing wise, when did you start that in relation to $1 million collar? Because you would have had a lot on your plate just with $1 million collar.
So I had $1 million collar. We got married in 2013. Like I said, we launched in 2016. In late 2015, my wife and I moved to Los Angeles, but we owned a 6,000 square foot commercial building where we ran our businesses before we moved. So that was fully rented and we just held on to that. And then I was like, just doing my research I'm like, just got to stay on top of my real estate numbers. So I just started looking at properties in Wisconsin where we're from and found one that was advertised totally wrong. And so I found a 16,000 square foot building that was about 2 miles from my in-laws up in Green Bay, Wisconsin, that had 20 offices in it, that was getting like $4,000 a month in rent. And I got it for 160 grand.
Wow.
So it was foreclosed on, and some REIT owned it. They had no idea what they had. So I bought it sight unseen. My father-in-law kind of walked it for me. We closed on that. We did some updates, filled it, and sold it 13 months later for $450,000. And so once we'd sold that property, we had potential capital gains.
Yes.
And there's a little known code in section 179 in the tax law that says if you buy a boat for charter specifically, you can depreciate up to $500,000 in the first year. So we bought a $300,000 boat, fully depreciated it, and offset the capital gains. Like, do we want to write an $80,000 check to the government, or do we want to buy a boat?
Yeah, really.
We bought the boat, and it was intended was, man, if we could just get a few charters to pay for this thing, we'll have a 50-foot boat sitting in the marina. We can go play on, have fun, and invite friends and network and do whatever we got to do.
Sure.
And it exploded. We ended up doing almost 800,000 or over 800,000 in revenue on it. So this is 2018 to 2022. We sold it later last year. And in 4 years, we did 800,000 in revenue on it. And I sold it for 35,000 more than I paid for it.
Even better.
That's the side hustle of side hustles. So the cool thing about the boat business is I would be captaining, and it got me away from my desk, because if I didn't have something to pull me away, I would just sit there and bang away at the computer and email and think of things to do. But
Sure.
Being pulled away gave me an opportunity for my mind to kind of wander and think about creative ways to get $1 million collar into the hands of the people that I needed to. So it actually worked out really cool to be a way to actually make me more productive with $1 million collar, because I had less time in the day and an opportunity to actually get out and think.
Having been a boat owner then, do you think it's feasible for somebody to start a side hustle that's into boats and have good excuse to have a boat to be able to actually make money on it?
I think that the boat business offers a lot of opportunity. I actually did a whole course on how to buy a boat, how to start a charter business, how to learn how to do all of it. And so we started that. It's called mycharterbusiness.com, because we loved it. I mean, If you like people and you like being on the water, I mean, we met celebrities and athletes and insane business people, and we got to do some really cool stuff because of that boat.
Yes.
And I think as this economy is changing, that there's going to be a lot more people that are like, how do I pay for this thing? So I think there's a great opportunity to get the boat into charter and share that experience with someone, so they can go out and spend $2,000 or $3,000 for a day, where what the overhead on owning a yacht. I mean, our boat was $6,000 or $7,000 a month, whether we drove it or not. So
right,
it gets really expensive real fast.
What did the $6,000 or $7,000 consist of as far as expenses?
So insurance is pretty expensive. Your slip, because it's in salt water, we had divers that came every week to clean the bottom and change zincs. You have to budget in for the oil changes. Fortunately, I can do it, but not everybody can. And if you take it to a yard, it's like $2,000 to have an oil change done on 2 engines and a generator. So that stuff got out real fast.
Yeah. And so that's going to be $6,000 or $7,000. What was the length of the boat?
50 feet overall.
Okay. And then of course there's going to be the cost of the lease or the loan or buying it outright, whatever the case may be. Insurance you mentioned. So what percentage of revenues then went to pay for your cost?
We actually did pretty good. We started out low on our per hour charge. So we started at $300 an hour just to get in and get business and figure out what it's all going to cost.
Wait, $300 an hour all in?
Yeah, I hate nickel and diming. So that's captain, crew, boat, everything.
That's a deal.
Yeah, by the time we sold, we were $550 an hour.
Okay.
And our margin was well over 50%. I did almost all the maintenance. I captained most of it. But even last year, I had moved to Georgia and the boat was still in California. And so I hired out the captain, I hired out the crew, and we were still doing easily a 40% margin. So I would rather take less charters at a higher price.
Yeah.
1, not to destroy the boat, and 2, just because if it's going out, I want to make sure that we're getting covered. So that's what worked for us. I knew one guy his boat went out like 50, 60 times a month. I mean, it was insane.
Because there are companies out there too, where you can basically own the boat and then say to the company, here, you look after all the rental and maintenance and cleaning between guests, right? And then they take a percentage.
Yeah. And that gets pretty expensive. I mean, so you're going to have listing fees. So you pay 10 to 20% if you list it to one of the services that has the buyer. So there's 20% right out of the gate.
Okay.
And then those guys could take 20 or 25% of, so whatever the maintenance that they're going to tack on top. I mean, that stuff got expensive. And again, I want to control it. So I just did it myself and figure out how to do it. I don't know how to do an oil change on a diesel engine. I watch a video. I actually shot a video now. So now I got a video out there that shows how to do it. I could do both engines and the generator within under an hour and a half, which is pretty good. So
yeah.
It's been in 12, 13, 15, $2,000 to have someone else do it.
Yeah. Sounds like you got the possibility of a few income sources there between courses and other things on the side. You're living in LA now, but when you moved from Wisconsin, you had yet another company that you sold at the time of the move, I think. Tell us about Nude Clothing, and that's spelled NEWD, right?
Nude stood for Nothing Else Will Do. I started out in 2006 as a graphic t-shirt brand. Ed Hardy and all these crazy brands were selling $90, $100 graphic t-shirts. And I was like, this is crazy. So I've got a lot of friends that are artists. I said, why don't we take your art, put it on a shirt, and instead of having to sell a $5,000 painting, we could sell $50 limited edition shirts. How cool is that? And then you can make money, and then great artists, terrible promoters. I owned all the inventory. It was not a good mix, but I found really, really great fabrics. People are always like, man, I love the shirt. I don't really care about the print, but I love the shirt. So then I started doing blanks. And instead of the logo being in your face, I put it all the way down on the bottom seam. So it's kind of out of the way. And so I started out with Nude Clothing Company because I love the name play.
Yes.
Nothing Else Will Do is in the name, which means I already had my mission statement built into my own name. And then I was subbing out all this screen printing work, and it was getting crazy expensive. So I told a guy I wanted to do some screen printing, and he's like, oh, my buddy's about to buy some equipment. You should meet him. So I met him. 2 weeks later, we bought all this equipment together. He taught me how to screen print, and I built $1 million screen printing business off of like a tabletop press and whatever basic stuff. So I did all the design. It was all inclusive pricing, and we did a couple 100,000 shirts.
And you started that in your basement?
Started in the basement, and so the basic setup is a tabletop press. It doesn't even have legs. So I had this great workbench in the basement, set it on that. It spun around. It was just a stationary flash dryer that is meant for like in between colors, not for curing shirts. I printed 100,000 shirts like that in my basement before I got that 6,000 square foot building and bought real equipment. But that was several years later. So I always wanted to make sure that cash flow was there before I made a move like that.
And what made you decide to sell?
Well, we were moving to California, so I didn't have a way to run it, deal with it. One of my clients ended up buying it, so it worked out really good. He took it over and continued it and added in some of the people that he knew. He actually owned Timex company that did like 5K race timings, the little bracelet you get on your ankle.
Oh, yeah.
So he's talking to all of those owners for all of the races. So he had just a built-in huge clientele. So he grew that, and that thing's still running. So it's really cool to see that. I talk to him from time to time, but yeah, that's Nude Clothing Company.
Do you think there's enough of a profit margin in these days?
For printing?
In screen printing?
It depends on your clientele. My clientele typically was bar owners. You go to the bar and they've got this t-shirt about their place and it's $20 freaking. I'm like, okay, well, how much money do you make selling $20 worth of cocktails? Let's think about these t-shirts as marketing, and we'll think about it as free marketing. So I'm going to charge you $7 a shirt. We had one bar in Milwaukee called the Monkey Bar, and it was tiny. It was like 2,000 square feet. And they had this really cool logo, and we would just change the colors for everything that was happening. Brewers are on. Okay, they're blue and gold. All right, the Packers are on. They're green and gold. Badgers are killing it. Let's do white and red. And they just sold them for $5 or $6 or $7 or gave them away. So that was their marketing budget. And all around town, there was thousands of people just wearing these Monkey Bar shirts everywhere. And it was like the easiest, simplest thing. And once you tell a bar owner, like, dude, take the $20, put it in the till and sell them beer, sell them a $5 shirt, That's not going to interfere with their drinking budget. And then now all these shirts are all running around town because they were limited edition in the color combinations. That shirt that you get for free, that's the one you treasure. You go buy a shirt at Target. You don't care about that one. That one becomes the yard work shirt. But
right.
That one that you earned,
yeah,
I'm going to wear that one everywhere. And that's what happened. It was great. So I had a lot of bar owners that did that.
I love the idea of switching up the colors too, based on what was happening at the time with the teams. And I've often scratched my head about that too, going into a bar or restaurant and they've got their t-shirts and caps on sale, but they're really expensive. And I'm like, why aren't you give them away or do it really cheaply and consider that part of your marketing budget? So you've got everybody running around town with your stuff. That makes so much more sense to me. What's the best place for our listeners to connect with you, Rob?
I mean, our websites are probably the best, milliondollarcollar.com and goTieless.com, and now mycharterbusiness.com, which is just almost done. It's a really, really intensive course. I mean, I've got every detail of everything you could possibly imagine, and it's only a few $100s. So if you really want to learn about chartering a boat, it's a pretty incredible opportunity. And then I'm on LinkedIn. I'm at Rob Kessler, III, because I'm the third.
Perfect. Well, through all that you've done, you've accomplished so much. Clearly, you know how to get things done. What's your best tip to inspire others to pursue their side hustle dream?
You got to care about it. Trying to figure out $1 Million Collar and ruining shirt and hearing no and people telling me how dumb I was. It was just a matter of I passionately cared about the way that this looked on my shirts. And so when those times are really tough and you're questioning all of your life decisions, which I did multiple times, it was easy to push through, or easier, because I wasn't chasing, I want to make $1 million, or I want to do this dollar amount. I'm chasing still changing dress shirts forever, which is an epically large goal. And it's not what most people need to do. I mean, I think that I was able to accomplish things I was because I'm telling people, this is what I'm doing. Man, I'm really looking for somebody who knows about plastics and this and that. And a friend is like, one of my clients does that. Here, I'll introduce you. And then you just meet the right people because you're talking about the thing that you're passionate about. And people can see that.
Yeah. The why there being really key.
Yeah.
Are you still involved in the charter business then with a boat in LA?
I help consult with the guy that has it and is running it now. I'm here for him when he needs, but we really were systems based. I mean, we only had like 5 options. Here's what you do in 2 hours. Here's what you do in 3 hours. Here's what you can do in 4. Here's what you can do in 5, or you can go to Catalina. That's it. So whenever you hired a captain or a crew, hey, we're doing a 4-hour Malibu pier. Okay, I know exactly what that entails. I got to get this and this and this and this. I know where I'm going. I know what I'm doing. I know the timing. And so we try to eliminate as many variables as possible. So it was really easy to hand over. My other advice is don't ever, 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 if at all possible, use your freaking name in the business, because you cannot sell Rob's charter business to Mike. People are going to be looking for Rob, and Mike's like, hey, Mike, I own it. And so at BellaBoating, goTieless, $1 Million Collar, nude clothing, never have ever used our name.
Great tip. Thank you so much, Rob.
You bet.
It's clear that Rob has talked to a lot of people about all the businesses he mentioned, particularly when he was trying to figure out next steps or a solution to a problem or wanting to meet certain people. You're likely familiar with the concept of 6 degrees of separation. It's the idea that all people are 6 or fewer social connections away from each other. So a chain of a friend can be made to connect pretty much any 2 people in a maximum of, 6 steps. I like to expand that concept of 6 steps to not just a particular person you want to meet, but 6 steps or less to a solution you're looking for. Just this morning, I received an email from someone asking me about 4 different things for a fundraiser that they have coming up. I can help them out with 2 of the 4, and for the remaining, I connected them with someone else who they don't know, but I do, that I think can help, and down the chain it goes. And in this case, it'll likely take less than 6 steps. But my point is, if she didn't reach out or started talking about it in the first place, the fundraiser might not even come together. When I discovered the self-storage industry, I knew it was for me. The more I learned about it, the more I fell in love with the idea of owning and operating a facility. And I built the image in my mind of doing just that. I could see it so clearly. At that point, I didn't know how or where it was going to manifest. I just wanted it to happen. One day I was at a party hosted by a friend of a friend who owned a retail store in town. The party was a lot of fun, but the best part was when I started talking to one guest in particular who I was thrilled to discover owned not only a storage facility, but owned a very large portfolio of self-storage properties, and in a very short period of time, he became my mentor in the industry. Putting together my first 7-figure deal was both exciting and a bit intimidating, to say the least. But him having confidence in both me and the deal itself that I showed him helped me to say yes to the purchase and move forward, instead of bolting back to my comfort zone, which at times was so tempting to do. So the next time you have a problem to solve or a question to be answered, think of the 6 degrees of separation concept and know that your solution or answer is likely only 6 steps or less away. Well, that's a wrap for today. You'll find links to Rob's social media, websites, and the links mentioned in this episode in the show notes and on our website, sidehustleheropodcast.com. And I'd love to hear your feedback on the show, on the guests, how this podcast is helping you. What areas could we do better? Shoot me an email message to hello@joanposivy.com or by DM on Instagram @joanposivy. Thanks for listening, and hustle on.